What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about XRP today. Hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it, my friends. Here we are at about $2.48. XRP had quite a bounce. You know, as fun as this day was over here, it's kind of a curse in disguise, isn't it? Right? Because not only did it throw a lot of people off, um, you know, I feel like it was a pretty predictable resistance point that we found right there. Let's be honest, though. But it probably threw a lot of people off. If it didn't exist, if this chart didn't have that blemish, look at how perfect of a downtrend you would have had, right? Ignoring this, pretty perfect downtrend. And then right now, this would actually be a really bullish look. But because of that, you still have lower highs, right? You're still in a. I mean, I don't know. Are you still in a downtrend if you drew it like this? Yes, kind of. I don't know. I don't know how to go about that. I treat it as like fake price, like it was a fake day. So this looks bullish, but I don't know if anybody else cares about that, right? At the end of the day, I do think that Bitcoin's going to proceed going lower. It's possible that it could first, move up a little bit higher, and maybe XRP moves up a little bit higher as well. But I assume Bitcoin will move lower. On the bright side, XRP moving up 11% while Bitcoin moved up 5% does put it in a really good position to not move below this low. I'm pretty damn confident it doesn't. Let's just see what I think Bitcoin's going to do again from a percentage basis right here at about 86K. I would assume that we drop down to right something probably, let's just say 72, low 72s. That's a 16% drop. If XRP were to drop a little bit more than Bitcoin, which I think it would, maybe it drops 20%, maybe it drops 22%. I don't think that it's going to drop that much more versus Bitcoin. It could 23%. I mean, I guess it still is possible it could drop below this low, but I'm assuming that XRP has a hard time dropping really more than 20%. Is my kind of estimate there. If you do go lower, right, the same targets exist. It's fine. It's fine. If you do go lower from a low to a high, maybe you go to $1.73, you go right down to this low here. Likely you're going to find support somewhere around $2, maybe $1.82. Is that what it was? $1.81. If not somewhere around $2.02. I personally think that you'll find support somewhere in this area is what I'm expecting. But what would that $2.02 price be? How much of a drop from here? Yeah, I could see that happening. So somewhere in that area, 202, 203, $1.81, something like that is where I think we're going to go. If we look at the daily RSI, finding resistance right here in the 60 area. You've done this before. We've done this a couple times. We've even found support in this area, right? Resistance, support, turbulence, whatever, resistance there. Last time that we found resistance here was in the midst of this downtrend. It was right here on this day, and we began to go lower. We did not find a lower low, but we began to go lower. If we saw a move that was comparable to that, I mean, we really could see a lower low than this or something of that nature, but I would expect that XRP goes down. Now, what I will say is on the bullish side, you're getting deep into those overbought territories. On the bearish side, you're very reluctant to do so. So while you are bearishly postured, don't get me wrong, this RSI, especially right now, and with the downtrend and everything, it is bearishly postured. You're a very weak bear. Okay, you're a very, very weak bear. You probably show some bearish strength here, but I think you can even see that in the price, right? The bigger candles throughout this whole consolidation phase, the biggest candles are the green candles, not the red. There's some big red ones, but the biggest candle is the green one here, right? The more big, the more prominent, large size candles that we get are green candles. Any red candle that's large, they come with huge wicks to the downside, right? It's actually like very inherently bullish candles. The bigger red candles. This might be the biggest red candle that's inherently bearish, but again, that came on a day that just like came in some price action that doesn't really make too much sense in my opinion. So we could disregard these, and even still, there's a lot more, I think, larger green candles than there are larger red candles, and even the large red candles are actually bullish candles in themselves. But all that to say, I think the bulls are in control. I don't think the bears are in control. The bears are clearly, I mean, they're in control right now, but they're not doing much with it. They're weak bears versus very strong bulls, and I assume that again this would lead to prices that don't go any lower than $1.81. You probably don't even get to $1.81, but something between 202 to $1.81. When it comes time to move up, you're going to do some phenomenal stuff. XRP, let's look at this here real quick. Maybe I should actually, I want to look at, we'll do the upside, and then I want to do the downside again real quick, but versus Bitcoin. From a high to a low, is this, no, we'll take this low here. Oh, so close. That low there. 2272 to 1886. It's very possible we could go back down to the 1886 down there. Yeah, even if we go a little bit below it, that's not a problem. That's fine. Man, it looks really good. This weekly RSI looks really good. I would love it if you can stay above the 50. If you don't, it's okay. You found support below the 50 last time and it did good. You found support below the 50 before and before, you know. But I just think this looks really good, especially in line with these higher lows here on the weekly time frame. But I guess what I would expect is that we see some kind of red week. Maybe not by the end of this week, but next week and the following weeks here, we probably do come back down to that 202 area. Whenever it is time to go higher, high to low, the areas that I would expect we stop at are somewhere between about this fib area based off of this fib right here, right? 3618 to the 3786. If we take the last cycle's high to lows, the area that I would expect based on these fibs would be about the same area right here at this 1886 to 200 level, right? And then if we take the prior cycle high to lows, we do this high to low here. We throw those on there. I would expect we find resistance somewhere between these fibs here simply because I don't think that we're going to go all the way up to $27 right now. But this fib lines up pretty well with the top side target of this fib. This fib here on the low end is the lowest target that we have, and then these fibs are kind of right in the middle. So there's a lot agreeing with this near $11 target. Okay, there's a lot agreeing with that. There's some agreeing with targets that are less than $10, but most of the targets that we have here are above $10, and in fact, even as close as or as high as like $13.30, $13.50. If we delete this shorter term fib, we look at and we delete the longer term fib. We basically just keep on last cycle's high to low. You can see that we're finding resistance at the 1272, bouncing off the 100. This kind of consolidation is really what makes me think we don't go below this low. But even if we do, you guys, it's fine. Okay, if we were to go below this low and we went as low, we could go as low as $1.56 and we're still fine, right? Bouncing off the 886 in this kind of scenario is not a bad thing. Okay, but I really have a hard time seeing us go below too much lower than like $1.97 there, right? But it's the same kind of stuff, right? It's all that same target area. I feel like I'm getting whiplash. Maybe not whiplash. I don't know. Getting bored. I'm just like I feel like I'm repeating myself. So I'm gonna move on from that XRP to Bitcoin here. XRP to Bitcoin on Binance. Sure. So we are expecting that you go lower, and let's see if we can make sense out of this on a Bitcoin price perspective. Okay, so from a low to a high, where would you go? Well, the way that you look, I mean, generally, I would expect that you would have gone to the 382 by now, but because that was some kind of wicked wick, that was that Monday, that Scarif Monday. If you didn't have that, okay, so that's nice. I treat this, no offense, maybe I'm wrong, but I treat that as like a fake candle. Act like this wick doesn't exist and everything else is real. That's basically how I treat it, right? It's not cherry picking. Maybe it is, but I think it's logical cherry picking if that's such a thing, if that is such a thing. I don't think you go below the 236. Okay, so that's good. That's good. How much lower is that? That would be, I mean, at the most, then you would drop, that's like 19% versus Bitcoin. Let's see if we can refine that a little bit. But if you were to drop 19% versus Bitcoin, and we're expecting that XR or Bitcoin itself drops 16%, that would mean that XRP drops 30% or more. So I don't think we're going to see that. Let me delete the LRO here. Get rid of this bad boy. Much better for day trading, not so much for the long-term trading in my experience. But I don't really day trade anyways. It's just beneficial. We'll look at it in a second here. And maybe we won't if I forget. What was I just going to do? Right. 16%, 18, 19%. That's 35%. 35% from here would imply that XRP drops all the way down here. And by the way, guys, again, even if that happened, which I don't think it's going to happen, but even if it did, it's fine. XRP will be totally fine, right? Those are prime areas to buy, if anything, not prime areas to sell. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So let's redo this, right? So probably not there. Daily time frame. The daily RSI actually looks bullishly postured versus Bitcoin. That's crazy. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So if you were to go lower, and again, we're not treating this as the real price. Let's take that low to this high here. I don't really like that as the real price either, though. And it doesn't look like the price really cares either. You are rejecting the 236, but maybe you're rejecting that 069. Tricky. Maybe from this high to this low. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this makes sense a little bit. Golden ratio resistance, you likely pull back to the 0.5 or 382. Okay, now we're on to something. All right, so to the 0.5 would imply that XRP drops only versus Bitcoin. by 2%. And that could happen. That could take days. It doesn't have to happen immediately, right? You can move down. You can move down slowly. You can move down a little bit, move up a little bit. You can come back up here, whatever. But if that happens, 2%. I don't know if I'm a fan of that right now, but it's possible. 6%, 6.4%. Okay, 2% to 6.5%, 16% there. That would be a 22.5% drop at the most to a 18 to 19% drop at the least. 22.5% drop at the most would mean that we don't go below $1.92. Nice. And then a 18.5%, was it 18% drop? I think it was 18.5. Come on. That's like $2.02. It's right in that same area, guys. It's perfect. I'm a lot more confident now than I was in the beginning of the video that you don't go below this low. And I think this move up that you had over the last 24 hours really has a lot to do with that. Whenever it does come time to the upside, we're going to flop back to the upside now. Which of course you're going to move lower first, but then you will move to the upside. Why do I believe you're going to move up to the upside after moving down? Well, I like to say this thing where I like to say, and it doesn't have to be this way, but this is how I like to think of it. It's a very simple thing. Different behavior begets different results, okay? Different behavior begets different results. What behavior are we doing differently here? Well, we're not going up and then coming down. We're not going up and then coming down. We actually kind of flirted a little bit here, to be fair, but up, down, tipping it and resisting it. Here we are really flirting hard. We've lived at this line of resistance forever. I have a funny feeling that we're not going to dump from here. We're probably, and even if we move down a little bit, right, however much it is in this consolidation phase still, when it does come time to breaking out, we're going to have a nice run. It's not going to be, we're not going to stop here at these wicks. We're going to have a nice run. Different behavior begets different results. We're getting away from this area. So let's zoom out. Zoom it out. Zoom it out. From a high here back in January of 2018 to the low here, which you double bottomed off of, kind of triple bottomed off of even. I'm going to delete this white line. Deleting. Wait, is it? Okay, it looks kind of dashed. Oh no, it was because my dash line was over it. Okay. Can I delete that? There we go. I would think that we would at least move. Our next target area would be the golden ratio. The golden ratio, the golden zone itself. So let's run with that. Let's run with that here. Okay, so if XRP, nope, that was not the right price. We want the right price because this is very specific. Nope. No, that's not that. There we go. If XRP were to move up 100% versus Bitcoin, and I think it will. By the way, this is the minimum expected target. It could go higher. It absolutely could go higher. And by the end of the cycle, it will go higher than that. We're looking for much higher targets versus Bitcoin. But according to Bitcoin, XRP versus Bitcoin, this would be the minimum target. Okay, so that's 102% move versus Bitcoin. Now, what we're trying to do here is make sense out of where XRP will top off by the end of May. I've made several predictions over the past, over the months, man. Literally since December even. I've made predictions that where this next move up is going to take us, and I did not make the prediction that we'd go down. But the next move up would take us ultimately to 170K. And those targets remain the same even with these moves down, even with the expectation that we go lower. I very much do believe we'll go to 170K. I'm kind of curious. We don't have the fibs yet, but let's put a fib like down there. 2272, right up around there. Maybe a little bit lower. I don't know. We'll see. But I want to take this high to low here. Let's say Bitcoin doesn't go to 100K or 170K. Let's say that doesn't happen. Where would it go? And by the way, consolidating like this, the 1272, I don't see you stopping anywhere other than your 1618. Like that's, I feel like you're at least going to go there and stop there. And that's at 173K. But let's say you stop somewhere in between the 1414 and the 1618. Let's say you stop like smack dab in the middle at about $150,000. Okay, 150K. If XRP is worth this versus Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's worth 150K, I think the math, let's just see if this would check out real quick. That would be about a 76% move for Bitcoin, 100% move versus XRP. XRP would then move up 176%. That doesn't sound right to me. 176%. Let's see here. And this is the minimum target, to be fair, but let's just make sure I'm doing my math right because sometimes the percentage stuff gets me. Google Calculator. But I'm assuming it would be something around there. It might not be exactly that, but let's just see. 4 zeros, 5, 8, 4, 1. 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, 5, 8, 4, 1. Okay. Oh, yeah. Times the price of Bitcoin, which would be 150K, right? $150,000. That's $8.76. So it's actually higher. So that the math is wrong how I did it, right? Because it's percentages, you can't really just add percentages like that. I do that as a way of like cheating to make it easier. But I was like, that doesn't sound right. So again, the purpose of this, and I know what this looks like, right? It looks like XRP won't go to $10, $11, but the minimum target has always been $8.37. We address it every day for that reason, right? But again, this is based off the minimum target versus Bitcoin. Your minimum target versus Bitcoin actually makes a lot of sense for your minimum target versus the US dollar. That's what we want to see. Okay, that makes sense to me. That's what we want to see. If we look at this thing for what it's worth on like its all-time life basis, where do you really, and actually from the golden ratio here, we're going to put a line right there at this golden ratio if it'll let me get the magnet off of there. We don't really find resistance here. Like what? We have one time here, twice here. Okay, a little bit there. I shouldn't say we don't. Okay, never mind. We've found resistance here. It just doesn't seem like the most significant area to me. What seems more significant than that area? Not that the golden ratio isn't significant. It is a significant area. But we've got resistance here, and it doesn't look significant, but let me zoom in here, right? You've got weekly closing highs here, wicks here. You've got some closing highs, like one closing high that's just above it. Maybe we should move it up a little bit higher. Let's put it like right in there. You know, closing high area here. Oop, I don't know why that happened. Closing high area here, closing high area there, closing high there, closing lows there. Some turbulence here, kind of in an area of support and resistance. I don't know if it would be this area specifically or this area specifically, but it coincidentally comes in around the 401 mark versus Bitcoin. So let's just do that. Let's see what the price would be at 401. 401. 0.0000 401 times that same price, which I think Bitcoin will go to 170K, by the way, but we're saying 150K just to keep it conservative. It's rather to be pleasantly surprised than to be disappointed, I suppose. And this could still set you up for disappointment if Bitcoin doesn't go up as high as I think it will, but I think it's going to go higher than that. Oh, wait, how is that right? It wouldn't be $1. How is that right? $1.50. What? How did we get less? Am I what happened? Oh, it's not. Is it 4? It would be 3 zeros. My bad. I see the 4 zeros there. That's why. Okay. I'm like, how does that make any sense? So it would be 3 zeros. 301 times 150. My brain just was in disbelief mode right there. $15. Right? I don't think we're going to go to $15, but here's the scoop. Here's something that we don't talk about a lot, okay? Here's something we don't talk about a lot, is that with the 1414, it's actually very common. It's more common than it is less common, right? It's much more common to go just above your 1414. It's less common to stop right at it. I'm sorry, I got the wrong fib on here. High to low here, right? The 1414, we've been acting like it was a ceiling, and the reason why is because I have a hard time seeing you get above that price. Like that already to me is crazy. But if we're being realistic with our resistance points here, a potential area of psychological resistance for Bitcoin, XRP to Bitcoin here, and even if it is just a little bit below, around $15 is what we would get, right? $15 there is what we'd get. And I could have done that math. Wow, 3 zeros. I don't know why I needed the calculator for that. It's obviously it'd be $15. From 150K. You put in 3 zeros, you take out, anyways, like you move it over 4 decimal points, right? Or you would move it over 5 decimal points, wouldn't you? 150, no, because you have 6, it would be 4, and that would make it $15, yes. And anyways, it's very common with the 1414 to go just above it and not stop right at it. It's much more common to go just above it. I'd say like 60% of the time we go up above it. 40% of the time we stop right at it. Okay, most of the time you don't stop just below it. You do stop right at it or through. And $15 is right through that area. So I'm not saying that I expect XRP to go to $15. That's not what I'm saying. But to the same extent, I'm not saying I expect it to go to $8.76. These are the minimum and maximum targets we're working with, right? So what I love about this is if you're deriving these prices on the US dollar basis, that leaves it open for scrutiny. Like the reality is that you could be wrong if the XRP BTC price doesn't make sense. Because if you go to an area, if your next likely stopping point would be somewhere lower, which no offense, I just don't think we consolidated this low to break out like this. I would assume that we're going to see a massive move with XRP versus Bitcoin coming at least 100%, if not more. If it makes sense from your low areas to your high areas, and I can't do the math that quickly. I didn't know that this line would equal $8.76. When they agree roughly with your same targets, that's very encouraging, you guys. To me, that only ups the likelihood that we will see XRP at these phenomenal targets, likely above $10. I don't know how many people are saying it in the space, but I would like to think I'm the only one. I'd like to think that I'm just so special. I don't know. I don't care. But I very much do believe XRP will be above $10 by the end of May, or at the very least by the end of this next move, whenever it starts to happen. I've got nothing else to say. I've talked a lot. Hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.